Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are here for the first time, then subscribe to my channel. If you watch and like my content but have not yet subscribed, please do so. Let's get the channel to 20k by December. With that said, let's get into the video. This video highlights how dangerous or risky it is for a black woman to have just one child in America. What do I mean? Let's check out this video.
Here's how long you'd have to work dangerous occupations to equal the same level of risk as a black woman faces to have one child. As you may know, according to the CDC, the maternal mortality rate for non-Hispanic black women was 69.9 per 100,000. That's more than twice the maternal mortality for the average woman and 3 times the maternal mortality rate for white women. But let's compare that to some of the most dangerous jobs in the United States. In 2021, there was about 129 officers killed. That puts their mortality rate at about 19.5. That means that a police officer would have to spend 3 years and 7 months in field work just to equal the same level of risk as a black woman faces to have one child. Next, let's look at firefighters. In 2020, there were about 1,041,200 firefighters in the United States. According to FEMA, about 102 of them lost their lives, which resulted in a mortality rate of about 9.8. That means that a firefighter would have to work about 7 years and 1 month to equal the same level of risk as black women face just to have one child. Now let's look at construction workers. According to BLS, their mortality rate was about 3.6 for every 100,000 workers. And that means that a construction worker would have to work 19 years and 5 months to have the same level of risk on the job as the average black woman faces to have one child. Okay, but what about soldiers? According to the US Army, in 2021, the on-ground deployment mortality rate was about 1.3 per every 100,000. That means a United States soldier would have to spend 53 years and 8 months on deployment to equal the same level of risk as a black woman faces to have, you guessed it, one child. Here's a couple of just miscellaneous other things. You can double check my work if you want to. A skydiver would have to perform around 64 jumps to equal the same level of risk as a black woman faces to have one child. With car accidents, the cause of unnatural death in the United States, you would have to be in 52 car accidents to equal the same level of risk as a black woman faces to have one child. And the last example I'm going to show in this video is bungee jumping. You would have to jump 350 times to have the same risk as a black woman faces to have one child. Giving birth is more dangerous than nearly every job in the United States, and it's 3 times more dangerous for black women. It's the single most dangerous thing that Americans will have to do in their lifetime, so it should be voluntary. And as I said in that last video, if men won't listen to women who say this, maybe they'll listen to a grizzled white dude who says to listen to women.
Now, trust me, a lot of women commented on this man's video, some sharing their experience and just how it's not casual to have a child when you are a black person in America. Could it be because of the lack of proper health care because of racism? The black maternal mortality rate are really high and you would wonder. It seems I'm not the only one that has something to say about this. Others do as well, so let's get into the stitches.
Faces to have one.
Go back and watch that whole video because it's extremely interesting and a great way to quantify that experience, I think, in a way that people will really understand. But this is what I want to talk about. In the comments of his video, black women took to the comment section and spoke about some of their experiences. I screenshot some of the craziest ones. This one right here says, I actually coded. No one believed me when I said I had the worst headache of my life. They released me with a baby and high blood pressure. Stroke with a baby in hand. This next one says, I had a twin cesarean section, lost my uterus, needed 7 units of blood and a unit of platelets, and spent 5 days in the ICU, another 5 on the regular floor. Next 2. I had a bad experience and the look on my husband's face was terrifying. He thought he was going to lose me. We have 1 child and he got a vasectomy. The next one, the struggle it took just to get doctors to believe my period pains and finally check me for fibroids. At 20 years old, I had passed out during a college final. Next, I think these are my last ones that I screenshot possibly. My mom was getting a C-section with me and the epidural didn't take. She begged them to check because she could feel the blade. They didn't believe her. Next, pain meds failed during my C-section and I felt the whole C-section, and while crying for help, they just kept going and said I shouldn't be feeling it. Okay, this is the last one because the C-section comments were particularly alarming to me because obviously C-sections are extremely invasive. I had a C-section and felt everything. They didn't believe me when I told them I felt it. I was screaming and crying, blacked out and everything. She blacked out because no one believed that her pain was that bad. What is it literally going to take for y'all to start believing black women? about anything. This childbirth one, I think, is one that on a national level, people do have interest and concern. But like, if y'all think we having these troubles with something like this, imagine how the same concept affects us in real life. Every day we are experiencing things and people are discrediting or dismissing our experiences, our lived experience, things that we are telling y'all, this actually happened to me. No sauce, no flair. I'm giving you the facts. And they're still saying, well, you sure? Well, you sure? And that sort of dismissive attitude is what is causing this infant mother mortality rate that we see in America. It's not, and I think that's something as a public health professional, I try to always explain to people. It's not literally like, oh, you're Black, you're gonna die in childbirth. But it's because of the things that go into it, the implicit bias, the lack of understanding of pain, this misconception about pain tolerance for Black women. All of that is what's doing this. It's not a medical thing. It's not because, oh, well, no. It ain't none of that. Simply because physicians and people in these positions do not believe us. Y'all gonna believe Black women one of these days, or we'll keep dying, and maybe then you'll care.
Dangerous for Black.
So in that clip, he was saying how dangerous it is for African American women to go into labor because people don't listen to them. Even though I had a really good experience delivering my daughter, I did have a tough experience just a month after delivering her. Let me explain. So when we left the hospital, Roddy had lost about a pound, which is expected when after you give birth, they do drop weight that initial 48 hours. Well, a week after, I took her to the doctor's appointment and they were concerned because she had not gained much weight back. Well, a week later, I went back to the doctor and she was still at the exact same weight. Yes, that's alarming, but this was their solution. Mom, what are you doing? Are you still breastfeeding? Yes, I'm still breastfeeding. Well, at this point, I don't want any brain developmental issues to happen, so I really suggest that you supplement with formula. So, 1, brain developmental issues. Now I'm freaking out like, oh my goodness, it's been 2 weeks. Am I causing damage with her? And then 2, your default is for me to supplement with formula. I remember getting in the car with my husband and starting to bawl. I'm like, I can't do what I'm supposed to do. I'm a woman. I should be able to feed my baby. And he was like, babe, everybody is not the same. Just do what you got to do. And I remember texting my sister-in-law because she had 2 children who she breastfed. And I just asked her, like, hey, the doctor just suggested that I supplement with formula. I don't know how I feel about this. And she called me and she was like, have you spoke with a lactation specialist? I'm like, no. She was like, your doctor didn't suggest that you speak with a lactation specialist before you default to formula feeding? I was like, no. And then she explained to me what a lactation specialist would do and explained how that might be a better option. Well, what I ended up finding out is that I was using nipple shields because if you have ever breastfed, they get raw. So I was using nipple shields and it was affecting the transfer of my milk to my daughter. And that is why she wasn't gaining weight. So she was taking enough in to be able to sustain, but she wasn't gaining weight. Which once we removed the nipple shields, she started thriving. An easy fix. I say that to say that a lot of times when it's something that's important to you, it might not be important to the doctors who are serving you or the individuals that's supposed to be helping you. That's why it's always important to talk to other people, get a second opinion, look into other resources for you to be able to get what you need. I hope this helps somebody. I hope your experience was better than mine, but we all know. We all got stories. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Go back and watch this video all the way through. This is a fraction of what we are talking about when we say that there is an ongoing genocide against people of color.
Black women get unalived due to pregnancy-related complications at a rate 3 times higher than other races. According to recent federal data, and experts say those tragic disparities result from structural erraticism. In Georgia, 8 out of 10 unalivings linked to pregnancy occur after childbirth, according to the Snipes analysis of reports from the state's Maternal Mortality Review Board. That's higher than the national average. According to the Commonwealth Fund, which has reported that about 5 out of 10 maternal unalivings occur after labor and delivery. Black pregnant people also experience postpartum depression and preventable or complications at higher rates than non-black peers. Beyond systemic disinvestment, SNIPE found that many families said they felt healthcare providers ignore or dismiss their concerns and complaints, and that if they insisted or if they listened to them, problems would not turn into emergencies. Now, many individuals interviewed said they were still processing the trauma they had encountered in healthcare system, thinking about what they would like to do differently. Many interviewees said they wish they had felt brave enough to stick up for themselves. Others said they had spoken out when they first recognized a problem, but healthcare workers did not listen to them. Black women in the United States experience unacceptably poor maternal health outcomes, including disproportionately high rates of unalivings related to pregnancy or childbirth. Now, both societal and health system factors contribute to high rates of poor health outcomes and maternal mortality for Black women, who are more likely to experience barriers to obtaining quality care and often face racial discrimination throughout their lives. Now, due to racism, escapism, and other systematic barriers that have contributed to income inequality, Black women are typically paid just 63 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men. Median wage for Black women in the United States are $36,227 per year, which is $21,698 less than the median wages for white and non-Hispanic men. Now, these last wages mean Black women and their families have less money to support themselves and their families, and many have to choose between essential resources like housing, childcare, food, and healthcare. Now, these trade-offs are evident in Black women's health outcomes and use of medical care compared to palm-color women. Black women are more likely to be uninsured, face greater financial barriers to care when they need it, and less likely to access prenatal care. Indeed, Black women experience higher rates of many preventable diseases and chronic health conditions, including diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. Now, if Black women choose to become pregnant, these health conditions influence both maternal and infant health outcomes. Let's now take a look at a few comments from people and just hear their take on this. This one says, "It's sad to say, but as a Black woman, I have to actively seek Black doctors. I had a C-section and felt everything. They didn't believe me when I told them I felt it. I was screaming and crying, blacked out and everything." This is super important. I'm shocked that construction risk is so low compared to other jobs. In Australia, it's one of the highest risk jobs. I almost lost me in my bed life because my dog didn't believe me when I said I felt something was wrong for months. Now, very sad stories and experiences in the comments. What do you, my viewers, have to say about this? Let's hear your take on this in the comment section. Thank you for always watching, and see you in my next video.